Governor McKee, Reagan-era Labor Secretary Ray Donovan was famous for saying after a process that what office do I go to get my reputation back? Do you empathize with that right now?
No. I'm telling you right now, I guess, is it true that the Attorney General, which he basically said that his work was causing a problem with public confidence? I think today was clearing that air. And so, yes, it's always a concern in terms of you're trying to get policy done. And this is always a problem. But I would go back to the election in 2022. That was the central issue. For day in and day out, millions of dollars were paid to destroy my reputation and my family's reputation. It didn't happen. So I'm very confident in the work we're doing. I know that I'm doing it in every decision I make is in the best interest of the people of the state of Rhode Island. And I think that that'll carry the day, going forward.
Quick follow-up. Can you explain to Rhode Island taxpayers what value they received for the nearly $2 million spent under this contract?
Yes. And it's showing in the work that we're doing right now. Learn 365 is a direct result of that work, along with the work that is being done in my office. The Attendance Matters program is a direct result of that work. At the time, we were putting kids back into the classroom, right? I forgot the exact term, but we were down in Westerly, and they would get them back in the classroom to make sure that the health issue was being addressed. But we have 22 municipal learning centers that are going to open up in the state of Rhode Island. $80 million was approved in the budget, and if they were able, remember, they got chased out of the state, right? They got chased out of the state, and it has impacted their careers. I'll let the individuals speak to that directly. But 22 learning centers, and that was a focus of the contract, are going to be opening up over the next 18 months in the state, and they'll be focusing every day on learning, on earnings, and health. That is a direct result of that work. They definitely contributed to that. And that's a big deal. That's not a small deal what's about happening in the state of Rhode Island on those learning centers. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. I'm happy to say that today is a good day for Rhode Island. For more than 3 years, my office has been operating professionally and effectively while under the cloud of allegations associated with the ILO investigation. Well, today, the cloud is gone. The case is closed. All investigations came up empty. And I have been cleared of any wrongdoing, as I knew would be the case. Both the U.S. Attorney's Office and the Attorney General looked into these allegations. The U.S. Attorney's Office gave a professional 25-word response about their conclusion. They said, I have it on the screen as well, as a matter of general principle and long-standing practice, the Department of Justice does not comment upon matters that it does not litigate or charge. On the other hand, the Rhode Island Attorney General came to the same inevitable conclusion. There was no case to pursue. But instead, he chose a different tactic to communicate that outcome. He carefully crafted and distributed a lengthy memo and held a press conference. In that memo and press conference, the Attorney General made unfounded and incorrect allegations that I violated procurement laws. even though he fully admits that it is outside the scope of his office. Let me set the record straight. My administration followed procurement law at that time, and the Department of Administration, the procurement professionals, are on the record confirming just that. Was the governor's office involved? It was a governor's office procurement, so of course my office was involved. Did I improperly steer the procurement process? No, of course not. Was I aggressive in trying to connect Rhode Island students and schools with the critical help they needed during the COVID-19 emergency? Yes, as I should have as governor, governing in a 100-year health pandemic. I was responding to the urgent need as a governor should. Rhode Island was in the middle of a battle with COVID, a once-in-a-lifetime public health emergency. And we were losing. We were last in the nation for getting people vaccinated, including our teachers and students. We didn't have kids fully back in the classroom. Our economy was decimated, and families were struggling with isolation and experiencing death at a rate faster than anywhere in the country. Our kids were at risk in terms of their academics, their physical health, and their mental health. I can tell you that the motivation behind my actions was to get support to our schools, teachers, and students who needed it urgently. Every decision I made during the time and my entire time as your governor has been in the best interest of the people of the state of Rhode Island. That's my job. So while I've always been very clear about my motivation, when it comes to this contract, this ILO contract, let's look at the Attorney General's motivation for the way he handled this investigation. The Attorney General has made it very clear, on the record, not just behind closed doors, that he wanted a different candidate in the governor's seat for the 2022 election. That he wants the same candidate that he voted for in 22 to be elected in 26. And that he regularly talks with the candidate to ensure I don't get reelected. This isn't speculation. It was reported clearly in the Rhode Island Monthly. So what was the AG's motivation? I think the public can clearly see the answer to that. They can say it right here in the Rhode Island Monthly article. And they can see it in the intensely political statements he's made about his own personal feelings towards me. Historically in Rhode Island, that blatant level of political involvement is unusual for attorney generals. And it gives me pause. While an attorney general is clearly and publicly campaigning against someone who is the subject of an investigation by his office, Should that Attorney General have recused himself? Yes. Peter Neronha had an obligation to recuse himself. That's how you get public confidence, by doing the right thing. But he didn't. Instead, he pitched a lengthy editorial to the media under the guise of a report. A response that the U.S. Attorney's Office says it would never have created on principle. Before I take questions, I want to thank the professionals in the AG's office and the state police for drilling down and determining that there was, in fact, no wrongdoing. And I thank as well everyone that investigated on this thing. I've been pretty quiet on this issue, but not today. These type of false allegations impact not only the people that I work with each and every day, but my family. My wife Susan's here. We're going to go trick-or-treating with Mabel Jane shortly. Family's important. No wrongdoing. No wrongdoing on the procurement process. He is not telling the truth when he says that. And he is misleading people once again. I want to thank the U.S. Attorney's Office as well for their work and putting this to rest. This case is over. And I want to thank the hard-working staff for not letting this prolonged investigation distract them from doing the important work of serving and supporting the Rhode Island people each and every day. That's our job. And that's what we'll continue to do. I'll take questions.
Governor, do you believe that just because there was no crime, that there was nothing done wrong, nothing to see here, and that can you admit that maybe it didn't look so great?
Sure, Governor. Do you believe that just because there was no crime, that nothing was done wrong, nothing to see here, or can you admit that maybe this deal didn't look very good to the public?
No, the facts are that there was no wrongdoing on my part. It's clear, not only in the U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI, which was the crux of a campaign against me in 2022, and the Attorney General himself. He said that there's no wrongdoing by saying that he is not moving forward in this case. And he also, again, I'm going to repeat this. He laid out an argument that's not true. He said that there is a procurement violation. I'm saying, and you can check, there was no violation. And it was an area that was outside of his purview, which he admitted yesterday, right? So the question is, what could things have done better? Hey, we always know that things can go better. But the context of the claim and the false accusations were wrong.
And you keep pointing, and you did 3 years ago, to the urgent nature of the pandemic to reopen schools. But there was a bid process. There was another bidder that came in with a lower bid, and their investigation found that when you found out another company was going to be awarded the bid, or potentially awarded the bid, you stepped in with the administration director. You wouldn't call that undue influence?
No. In fact, again, it was a governor's procurement. Our office was involved. I went over the tape that you asked me about today. It was a competitive bid process. And the fact of the matter is, in the end of the decision making, I did not play a part in that. In fact, when Jim Thorson shared some information with me, which I looked at, I said, these bids don't make sense. They are so out of whack. My suggestion to him was to go back and take a look at it. Did I tell him to do that? No, I did suggest it. And guess what happened? When the procurement looked at that, they agreed. And they turned to a legitimate procurement method. That's what they did. So when you take a look at this issue, there was no wrongdoing on any of the investigations. So, yes, you always can do better, right? But the fact of the matter is, the crux of the allegation was false. You can't prove something that is not true. You can make allegations, and until today, I was not able to stand in front of the mic because there wasn't a decision that came down in this case. Today I am, and today I'm very strong about the fact that this issue was a political issue from the day one.
Governor, you have taken issue with the Attorney General's investigation on that. Let's put that to the side. Sergeant Michael Brock wrote in his affidavit that Tom McCarthy felt pressured. Jim Thorson said you personally influenced the contractors of other evidence, including an email for Julia Rafflebear. How is that not intervening in the contract when the state police evidence shows otherwise?
Well, first of all, that was all consideration. The U.S. Attorney's Office had that information, and they came back and they said there was no charge. So your question is, yes, I admit that during the COVID, whether it had to do with vaccinations, whether it had to do with issues of the economy, and issues in terms of the schools, I was proactive. I was doing my job. But I did not go over the line, and that's why there's no charge.
But you had repeatedly told the press corps and the public you never intervened. This evidence shows otherwise. Do you owe the public an apology?
I reviewed what Brian was talking about, and that was an accurate statement. One was that it was a competitive bid, which it was, and two, that the fact of the matter is in the final decision, in the final analysis to go into a legitimate procurement method, an alternative one, right, where the two companies received the approval from the procurement, independent of me, that happened. So all I can say is all that information's in. There's no charge. There's no wrongdoing.
Governor, quick question. If you're so sure of your standing in this, why didn't you get interviewed by the state police? Why did you and your staff refuse to meet and have you interviewed?
Well, let's put up the reason why. I don't trust the Attorney General. That he asked for that. I didn't have an obligation to do it. I knew that they were going to come up empty. And when you look at this issue and the constant statements that the Attorney General's made recently, publicly telling people that I don't know what I'm doing, that we have an incompetence now. It is on record multiple times. So why would I go into a place where the Attorney General was actually, who wanted me out of office, by the way, right? Clearly wanted me out of office. He didn't vote for me in 2022, and he wants me out of office in 2026. That was a place that, like I said earlier, my mom didn't raise no fool. And I can see what, from a very close up to analyze what that was all about. And in the end, there was nothing there.
Governor,
right?
one of the documents released this week was an email from Julia Rafflebear.
And it said it's a fixed RFP, but luckily I know the person it's fixed for, and then it had a winking emoji. How do you explain that?
All I can tell you is that it wasn't a fixed contract. It was a...
She's wrong?
Yes, absolutely. So, and I just saw that, recently. So that was not correct. It was a competitive bid. And I was clearly saying I needed professional help to address a critical issue in the lives of all the students in the state of Rhode Island. I took that responsibility, as a, high obligation. So we went with we needed new skill and talent in that place, just like we did all around the departments in the state before I was governor and after I was governor.
So if it was an emergency, why not do it as an emergency contract? Why do an RFP?
Yeah, and that's a good question. And I was certainly willing to do that, but I also, look, you're 2 or 3 weeks on the job, you're into an absolute critical situation. Besides, we're doing the budget at the same time, we were doing a lot of things. The advice that came was that we would go through a procurement process, and that's what happened. In retrospect, a lot of this drama could have been eliminated if I asked.
Governor, if the Attorney General had recused himself, would you have agreed to be interviewed?
If the Attorney General needed to recuse himself from day one.
Did you call for him to do so at the time?
No, but a lot of this, he knew what we didn't know. He knew what was printed in April of this year, that he had a conflict. I didn't know that. He never told anybody that, but he's on the record saying that. So he knew that he should have recused himself as the top law official in the state of Rhode Island. That's leadership, and that's how you build public health.
So should only attorney generals who support you or vote for you be able to investigate?
No, that's not what it was said. He is actively campaigning to take me out of office. He should have realized that he had a conflict here. That's not my call. It's his call. That's what integrity is about, right? You can make that call.
Governor, did you hire Bill Murphy as your attorney in this case?
Late in the session, I did talk to Bill about some advice on this issue, very, 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 very late.
Who paid for it?
On the advice that he gave right now, I'll be paying for it.
You'll be paying for it?
Absolutely. I mean, Bill, it was advice. It wasn't like weeks and weeks and weeks, right? There was some advice. I reached out to him. I know him, and if he's billed, if I'm billed for the few hours he was in there.
Sorry, I'm responding to Tom, so they just, that's what Mike said.
You're signing.
I'm. Okay, I'm back.
Just a quick follow-up. You all sit down?
Okay, thanks.
I just have sort of a big picture question here. You know, you've had issues obviously with the ILO contract, you've had issues with the bridge contract, and you just recently had to rescind the contract that was awarded, tentatively on the Medicaid contract. Do you have a procurement problem in the administration?
Look, the bureaucracy is not easy, as I am certainly aware of after almost 4 years in office. So there's always improvement there. But there's also a reason for the bureaucracy in terms of the way that it works. I mean, many, many contracts have been signed without getting on that list, right? Well, there's big ones that have been signed, right? There's big, huge, IT type of contracts that have been signed. So, back to Brian's point, we always can do better. But the fact of the matter is, in terms of the contract on the, what would you say, the Medicaid? Yeah, I mean, and by the way, that's how the process works in procurement. If you think that there was an issue during the bidding process, you have the right to appeal, right? Which did not happen in the ILO contract. And on the bridge, look, we're tearing down the bridge. There's a contract in place to tear down the bridge. So, and we're not delaying the construction of the project at this point in time. You know, we're very hopeful that the plan that we have in place right now is going to pay, you know, is going to actually, we're going to realize a contract that'll do that project in a timely way. So there's plenty of contracts that we're signing, that's my point. And there are a handful always that, you know, that aren't signed, but we'll work our way through the Medicaid issue, right? And we're working our way through the Washington Bridge. The ILO is kind of a little bit different than that. I mean, you know, we're here today because it's rose to a level where we need to address this issue. And that's, again, there's no wrongdoings on that, and it's been verified and validated by the U.S. Attorney and the Attorney General's office, along with anybody that's been looking at this.
Governor, so the conclusions lay out that there's not enough evidence for criminal bribery charges. However, it leaves open the possibility of ethical violations, which is something that Common Cause has said it's considering filing a complaint, and the state ethics prosecutor has also said they're looking into it. Do you have any comment about alleged ethical violations?
That's not really accurate. The Attorney General looked in both the ethics issue and the campaign finance, and if there was a problem there, you know, you would have charged. So you know, John Marion can do whatever he wants, but I do also know that to say there's not enough evidence, there was none. The question that was asked yesterday was, how close did you get? I'm going to tell you right now, on a 1 to 10, it was 0.00 that I would be involved, and I take a lot of offense to this personally, that I would be involved in anything that would even have bribe in the sentence with me. And to have that, that's why it is this guy is Attorney General. He misled everyone on his press conference yesterday. There was not a procurement violation, and yet he said there was. And then he painted this picture that you would ask that question, right? That opened up the discussion about a bribe. Well, I can tell you right now, that's really troublesome. It is troublesome that in the same sentence that the Governor, Dan McKee, and bribe is in the same sentence, that just infuriates me.
How then would you describe the $90,000 worth of in-kind services that your administration received from SKDK as not potentially a gift over $25?
Well, you know, again, that's something that has been planted, a seed that's been planted is not true either. Right? So that dollar item is not close to what it could be. That's something that was independent of me. And by the way, that has also been entirely investigated by the U.S. Attorney and the Attorney General. I have professionals that run that, run the side of the finances. I have legal counsel that, by the way, we engaged through the campaign because it was a campaign issue, and we spent tens of thousands of dollars. By the way, innocent people who were accused wrongly, they had to take money out of their pockets, and their careers were stalled because of this investigation. So I don't think it's being accurate. That number's not, as far as I know, that number's not accurate. But that question has been asked and answered. And when they come back with no charges, that was calculated into their calculation. So they're not separate and apart. They're part of the investigation that now we know there's no charges and there's no wrongdoing. And we are now in a position as a state, to the people who are listening, to carry on with the important work that we need to do in our schools, in our economy, in our health, without this cloud over us anymore. This case is closed.
Just one quick follow-up. You're disputing the several contracts that are included as evidence showing the payments from Chiefs for Change to SKDK on behalf of your administration?
What I'm saying is that we had no part in that. Now, in order to have a situation, and I'll get it wrong, and I'm not supposed to say pro quid quo or whatever it is, but to have that, you actually have to have an agreement where you do something for me and I'll do something for you. could open this case up for another 3 years. They've already closed it. They could open it till hell freezes over. Till hell freezes over, and they will not find any level of fraud or any level of bribery. And yet, that's what the Attorney General did yesterday. He laid out an argument, and he actually said, hey, I gotta show you the media, I gotta actually show you the way to where I want you to go. That's what he said to you. Because all that information, you probably could have had access to that. But he had to put the crumbs out, and then lead you into a direction where you would actually ask a question like that. So I understand why you would ask the question, and you're in very much in your rights, and actually I'm happy you did, because I got to address something that personally, for me and my family, is very, very, very upsetting.
Governor, go back to the fact that you thought this was political, correct? And you would not sit down with the interview because of the political motivations of the Attorney General.
Prior governors, Governor Kachiri, Governor Chafee, Governor Raimondo, were interviewed on 38 studios. If you were so sure that you did no wrongdoing, but then take the position that you just weren't going to sit because of the political motivations, why didn't you just sit and tell your truth?
You saw it happen yesterday, right? The Attorney General put out a political hit piece. He's working for somebody that potentially could run against me in 26. And he's trying to take me out of office as we speak. So that is
by leveraging the state police, Governor?
What's that?
By leveraging the state police, he's doing that?
Remember this. After, he said yesterday that he got the lead from your office, which is fine. That's exactly what you need to do. At that point in time, he's the one who called the state police. He's the one who called the U.S. Attorney. He was controlling this all the way through, and he would have controlled that interview, and I don't trust that it would have been a fair interview.
Governor McKee?
Earlier on.
Governor McKee?
No. Earlier on, let me ask you to please provide this. I have 3 questions. This is the first easy one. We asked for the subpoenas. Right.
Yes.
We asked for any subpoenas, any search warrants served by the state or federal investigators, and you said, the investigation's ongoing, couldn't possibly do that. Well, it appears they're over now. Less clear about the federal investigation, but it appears they're over now. Are you willing now to make them public? And if not, why not?
So I think the question was, did I ever get subpoenaed? The answer is no. I didn't get subpoenaed by the U.S. Attorney. I didn't get subpoenaed by the Attorney General. So that's what I know. That's the question that I was asked at the time, I believe.
No, it was or anyone in your administration.
I'm not aware of anyone who was subpoenaed in my administration.
How about search warrants?
I'm sorry.
Search warrants.
I think there may have been 1 or 2.
There was one on you.
There may be 1 or 2. So clearly, do you have that already?
No.
It's in the report.
Yeah. So that's right. So I clarified that today before I came out because I figured that question would be asked. Did I get subpoenaed? No. Did any individuals in my office get subpoenaed? I'm not aware of it. There was a what they call a search warrant or something? Was there some level that I guess we categorize? Yes.
Next question, and really 2 questions, and they both have to do with the optics. You're saying nothing went wrong, but anyone who actually looked through the emails and the texts saw 2 things, which I'd be interested in hearing your explanation. Chiefs for Change makes a contract, an agreement with a group called SKDK. We who read the emails see back and forth. They have all sorts of advice for you before you're even ascended to the governor's office about how you should assert yourself, who should name the lieutenant governor, how you should get out front for James Diosa, and all sorts of other things. Then they get involved, and you see more emails go back and forth on how the contract should be shaped and what it should reflect. So my question, having mentioned some of the things we all read yesterday or 2 days ago, question is, how would you explain to the public that it was okay that these people who were not being paid by the state, were not being paid by the campaign, were behind the scenes exchanging money to give you advice on very basic stuff, and most to the point here, on how this contract should be shaped?
So that was happening during the transition time when I was eminent that I was going to become governor. And we had multiple people there, right? And Dr. Jha was involved in that. We had people who were in the business world that were engaged in that. And yes, we did have some individuals that were brought to the table. In this case, that SKDK, by Mike McKee. That was not a transaction that I was involved in. So that was separate and apart from me. So what all I was interested in is, give me some advice on how to take 90,000 doses that were on the shelf when they showed up into people's homes. How do we open up an economy and make sure we have music in Newport in the summer of 21, which we did, and reopen the economy? And how are we going to impact? And by the way, everything I said at the time, when we're talking about a contract to help kids get back to school safely, to help those families, we're realizing it right now. Mental health issues exist today. You have a situation where, the academics, the attendance, are all being impacted. So I was doing my job to be ahead of the curve, to put the best professionals in front of me that were willing to come in front of me to give me that advice.
How do you explain to the public that it was Chiefs for Change, Mike McKee and Julia Raphael that was paying your consultants, SKDK, for the best advice? How should the public understand that? Well, the next thing we see is an ILO contract which pays one of the principals in Chiefs for Change up to $5 million.
So the only way I can explain that is that I was doing everything in my power to get ready to be governor of the state in a COVID crisis that we haven't seen in 100 years and we hope we never see again. So I was doing my job to make sure that I was getting the best advice I could. If there was compensation coming from Chiefs for Change, that was their decision. This was in transition time, right? And the only thing I would say, the U.S. Attorney had that information. The Attorney General had that information. And there were no charges. So, like I've said right from the very beginning, look, anybody who thought that there was going to be some charge or some wrongdoing, I said they were going to come up empty. They did come up empty. And I also said, as we're outlining today, who's willing to look into this story that I just outlined in terms of this Attorney General that should have recused himself because he knew damn well that he had a problem with me. He also knew darn well, he also knew very clearly that he voted for somebody else in 2022. And he also is very clear he's meeting right now, regularly based on his comment, to take me out of office in 2026. So all I can say is there was no charges. There was no evidence of any wrongdoing, and there wasn't even a sliver in my mind, in which it came out to be true. This was not like a judgment call. This was, as I said, I'm laying out the facts. The people need to hear the facts from me, and I was not in a position to lay out those facts because at that point in time, there still was a cloud over this investigation that permeated an election in 2022, and I'm pleased, quite frankly, that the public saw through these false allegations.
Governor McKee, Reagan-era Labor Secretary Ray Donovan was famous for saying after a process that, what office do I go to get my reputation back? Do you empathize with that right now?
No. I'm telling you right now, I guess, is it true that the Attorney General, which he basically said that his work was causing a problem with public confidence? I think today was clearing that air. And so, yes, it's always a concern in terms of you're trying to get policy done. And this is always a problem. But I would go back to the election in 2022. That was the central issue. For day in and day out. Millions of dollars were paid to destroy my reputation and my family's reputation. It didn't happen. So I'm very confident in the work we're doing. I know that I'm doing it in every decision I make is in the best interest of the people of the state of Rhode Island. And I think that that'll carry the day, going forward.
Quick follow-up. Can you explain to Rhode Island taxpayers what value they received for the nearly $2 million spent under this contract?
Yes, and the showing in the work that we're doing right now. Learn 365 is a direct result of that work, along with the work that is being done in my office. The Attendance Matters program is a direct result of that work. At the time, we were putting kids back into the classroom, right? I forgot the exact term, but we were down in Westerly, and they would get them back in the classroom to make sure that the health issue was being addressed. But we have 22 municipal learning centers that are going to open up in the state of Rhode Island. $80 million was approved in the budget, and if they were able, remember, they got chased out of the state, right? They got chased out of the state, and it has impacted their careers. I'll let the individuals speak to that directly. But 22 learning centers, and that was a focus of the contract, are going to be opening up over the next 18 months in the state. And they'll be focusing every day on learning, on earnings, and health. That is a direct result of that work. They definitely contributed to that. And that's a big deal. That's not a small deal what's about to happen in the state of Rhode Island on those learning centers.
Colonel Weaver was at the press conference yesterday, and you are saying that your state police participated in a fixed, politically motivated investigation that you do not, and to such an extent that you don't feel comfortable being interviewed by them because it's fixed. Do you now not have confidence in the state police and just the rest of Rhode Island?
Let's clarify that. I am not uncomfortable. In fact, I stood here and thanked them for the work on this investigation to clear the air. And I did not interfere with that investigation. What I'm telling you is the AG runs the investigation. And the state police basically take the lead from him. So he's the one who made the call for me to come in and talk to him. And I just told you, I don't trust him in the context of that investigation. And he showed it yesterday, right? He's saying there's a procurement violation. I'm telling you right now, look into it. Make your calls. There is no procurement violation. And he told the world that there was. And that's why this conversation is extended where it is. Otherwise, we'd be talking about a dismissal of a case that was over 3.5 years of, quite frankly, a lot of excruciating pain for me and my family. And in the backdrop, the crew that I work with every single day, that wasn't lost on them.
And on the school reopening contract and the urgency to get it done, did not awarding the contract to the low bidder, instead awarding it to another bidder who you prefer, did that speed up or slow down getting the contract awarded and completed?
No, the bureaucracy moved very, at snail's pace. And that's clearly what I was addressing as the governor, to get something done. And I would also say there...
But didn't you told them not to award the contract?
I will answer the question. I pointed out that there was imbalances in the initial responses. The procurement looked at it and they said yes, there was imbalances, and then that's when they decided that they were going to go with this qualified alternative method. And the other question that you asked, and I figured it was going to be asked, look, the cost of anything is always an issue, but that was not the priority in this. The number one priority was to help families get their kids back in school safely. And that's exactly what we were doing. We continued to work after ILO stopped the contract because she was getting threatening calls. She had people on her front lawn, intimidating her family, right? So I understand why they left, but the fact of the matter is, the priority on this issue, money is always an issue. But in this case, it was to get the most qualified people in the space they were, and to help the families that were struggling in many ways, and help these kids get back into school, because the mental health issues, the learning issues, and the attendance issues were all at risk at that time. This was a critical time frame in the state of the Rhode Island's history. I was governor, came into that office, and I did what I needed to do in the best interest of the people of the state of Rhode Island.
Last question to Eli.
Governor, just looking at Sergeant Brock's report here, Julie Raffaele and Mike McKee helped craft the RFP. They helped come up with the cost of the RFP. They were involved in all of the early meetings that was, getting the RFP up there. And Mike McKee was even involved at coming up with the scope of work that should go to ILO and West Ed. And I just wonder what message you think that's sending to potential bidders on future contracts and whether they should be coming to you directly to try and get those things.
Well, at the time, the procurement law allowed that, right? Today, it doesn't. So at that time, you go to the people who understand the issue. You go out to a competitive bid, and it was a competitive bid. So the fact of the matter is that there was no violation, as the Attorney General led people to believe yesterday, and there were no charges because there was no wrongdoing, and you can't prove a case that you're relying on false information. In the end, I'm happy to say the truth won out, and the state of Rhode Island is better off for it. Thank you very much for having me.
Would you file an ethics complaint against the Attorney General?
I'll let somebody else do that.